So hey guys, this will be what if Izuku was a king? Yeah, and in this one, he won't be in class 1A. He'll be in second year. I don't know what to call that class, but he'll be second year. Yeah, and for this one, he'll be Kendo will be the ship for this one, and Izuku is going to have two sisters, Izumi. This will be him when he's going to Canon, and this will be Lori. I just name her Lori. This will be Izuku's second sister, and this will be Lori's heart, and this will be Izuku's swords. Yeah, and this is the family crest. Don't know what they want to name the country that they're going to rule, so just say country for now. So and Izuku parents will be the same Inko and Hisashi, but in this one, Hisashi died in a war, and let's say Izuku was around 15 at the time, and yes, Yue will be a college. No, not a college. No, a high school. Yue will be a high school, but they'll have a college too. Yeah, that's what I want to do. Yeah. And so Hisashi died in a war with a next country that was trying to take over. Izuku was 15 at the time, and he stayed back to look after Izumi and Lori. And I'll say that Inko died of poison, like somebody poisoned her, so she died. Yeah, but the person that killed Inko got mm, uh, that's the guards that were loyal to the Midorias. They found the person and they executed the person on site. And so let's go back to where Inko is giving where Inko is giving birth to Izuku. And let's say Hisashi's hair is blonde and he has blue, and Inko has blue eyes and uh, black hair. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. And when Izuku is born, he he hmm, he wasn't crying. He wouldn't be crying because I'm going to make his personality change because of what his quirk is going to be. Yeah, and his quirk is going to be like a army quirk. Like he can manifest the army up to 1,000 or 2,000 people, 2,000 shadow or light because of the swords. And let's say his quirk that and his next part of his quirk because of the shadow or light part is that he can manipulate light and shadows. Yeah. So let's see. Yeah, when he's being born and so on, light started to shine bright, and shadows started to move. The doctor's shadows started to move up and down, and they were confused about what was happening, except for Hisashi because that he knows what that is. Because let's say his father is that's the same thing that happened to him, but Hisashi's didn't happen because it skipped a generation. Let's say the quirk is that quirk is like it's passed down into the only the boys in the family can get it. Yeah, not Hisashi didn't get it. He got a fire breathing quirk. No, Not a fire breathing quirk or like a sun quirk or sunlight light, but it most like with the sunlight it works with our moonlight, but it's stronger in the day. Yeah. So that will be Izuku's quirk, the army quirk slash light and shadow manipulation. Yeah. And I'll say Izumi will be in second. Yeah, Izumi will just be in kindergarten, and Lori she be in the first year of UA. And how I'm going to do this is Izuku he will be he's going to transfer to UA because he wants to, let's say, live a normal life with his sisters, but but he has to bring guards with him and so on. Mm. But let's say Hisashi had a brother and he was put in charge when Izuku is going to leave. Yeah. So 10 after Izuku is born, when he's, let's say when he's 10, Lori is Inko was giving birth to Lori. Yeah. And this is Lori. This she'll have blonde hair and light blue eyes. And I don't know who you want me to ship her with, so yeah, you guys can decide if you want me to ship her with. Hmm, who should I do it with? I don't know who I should ship her with, so you guys can tell me now. Tell me. And Kendo will be the ship for this because I'm going to make Izuku like a little arrogant, no, bossy because like he's a king, so yeah. And she'll cancel out his personality or are going to make him behave. Yeah, this will be Izuku's horse, but let's say this is the one, he has two horses. This is the one that he rides in public and so on, but this is his horse that he normally likes to ride when he's at the palace. Yeah, and this is no, this is Izumi's horse. My bad. Sorry for that mistake. Yeah, this is Izuku's horse, the one that he likes to ride. So yeah, and yeah, when Lori is born, she has a sun-based quirk like that, same as Hisashi, and he's glad about it and so on. She's No, like she's born 1 year after Izuku is born. Yes, scratch all of that. She's born 1 year after Izuku is born. Yeah, yeah. So like Izuku and she's growing up, and Izumi will be about 4 when when Izuku is 15 and Izumi is 14. No, Lori is 14. Yeah, I'm mixing them up. So Izumi, yeah, so like thanks keep doing that, Izuku and Lori have been learning how to control their quirks and learning how to use a sword, spear, and learning how to ride horses and learn different languages. Yeah. And let's say in this one, Izuku is really smart since he has to think of war strategy. I can't pronounce the word. Like yeah, strategies for war and so on. So he be smart, like smarter than Momo, and like almost as smart as Nezu. Yeah, let's put it like that. Mm, and that's how it's going to be. And let's say that Izuku he's the second best with the sword for in his family, and his father is the first, and Lori is second. And Inko quirk will be the same, but it's a lot stronger this time, like a lot stronger. She can lift about 14 to 25 people. at once. Mm. And Izumi's quirk will be a half and half quirk, like half telekinesis, half sun-based quirk. Yeah. And the doctors are shocked that both Lori and Izumi has this like almost the same kind of quirk as their father, but even shocked that Izumi has a half and half quirk that is so strong. Yeah. Yeah, so Izumi is born, and for the rest of the uh she she'll be 4 when they're going into UA. Yeah, so that's going on, and Izumi's been growing up with them and so on, and Hisashi has been going to a lot of wars and so on, and this is like when scratch out about all of them being 15 and so on. This is when Izuku will be this is when Izuku will be 18, Lori will be 17, and Izumi will be 4. Yeah, 4 or 3, whichever. Yeah, 4 or 3, and this is where Hisashi dies. Yeah, this is where Hisashi will die. Yeah, and Izuku doesn't know Bakugo since they're in a different country and so on. So Bakugo's quirk will be a little weaker in this since he didn't bully Deku or use his quirk other than just to cause little explosions when the teacher says something about quirks or UA. Yeah. And Kendo, she's going to get one for all. One for all. That's why I say she's going to be the ship. Yeah, she's going to get one for all. Yeah. And Izuku is going to be overprotective of his sisters. Yeah. And in this one, I just wait till I reach there. Why am I saying in this one so much? So like yeah, they got the news about how Hisashi died in the in a war, but he died like a warrior and so on. He died taking down the general and the king of that country, and then it will be ruled by the Midoras now. And let's say the heroes they can't intervene with this because it's like against the war rules that heroes are forbidden to interfere in wars and so on. So you heard about this because they're UA and that yeah. So they heard about what happened, and they were somewhat surprised that Hisashi died because they heard about how he was a strong king and so on. Yeah, but they were wondering if they should send out a recommendation or send a invitation to Yui to Izuku and Lori. Yeah, and so on. And let's say like after like when they heard of this, Izuku, Lori, Izumi, and Inko were crying. So was Hisashi's brother. I don't have a name for him. You can just call him Andy or Randy, whichever one. Yeah, and I say it's one of the maids that poisoned Inko. Yeah, and Randy found out what happened, and he found the person that was behind it and killed them. Yeah. So like after a week of mourning for for Inko husband and their father and brother. Yeah. So like the funeral happened, and Hisashi was buried in the family graveyard, and so it was time for like it was going Izuku was going to become the king, so they had to hold a ceremony or whatever it's called. Yeah. And let's say the night before, the 2 days before the ceremony happened, this is when Inko was poisoned. Yeah. And everybody was, and like the maid brought something to, brought like a cake and tea to Inko's room, and like couple guards saw the maid, and yeah, I'm going to make it a guard saw her and so on. Yeah, so the lady brought that to Inko so they would have a description of how the person looked. Yeah, and yeah, after that, Inko, when the next day they were looking for Inko and couldn't find her. Then they asked the guards and so on, and the guards told them that Inko didn't come out of her room from last night after a maid brought her a cake and like a glass of milk or wine, whichever one you want it, whichever one you guys want it to be. Yeah, and after they heard Hisashi's brother asked for a description of the maid, and he told Izuku and a couple of guards to go to Inko's room, and they were knocking on the door. And yeah, after that, Izuku and the guards got to her room. They were knocking and calling for like, let's say, 10 minutes straight, and there was no response. And then one of the guards asked permission from Izuku to kick the door down, and Izuku says yes. And when they kicked the door down, they saw Inko's body with foam and blood coming out of her eyes, ears, and mouth, and that. And Izuku went into tears and was sad. And let's say since that happened, he has been cold to everyone except for his sisters, his uncle, and the people in his and like close people to him, like some of the guards and so on. Um, I gotta go get something to drink. Okay, so I finished drinking up my water. Yeah, and where did I leave it off? Yeah, it was in where he got cold to certain people and so on. And like Hisashi, he found, not Hisashi, Andy, Andy, yeah. He heard the guards went and informed him of what happened to Inko, and then like a few minutes later and so on, all the guards in the castle were alerted, our palace, and were looking for her. And even guards in different areas of the countries were informed about this because they like had a hawk, like somebody with a taming court that tames a bunch of hawks, eagles, and birds like that. Like this, they send messages. Yeah, they sent out a message to the guards at different posts of places and so on to look out for that woman. And yeah, and let's say since they're the mid, like Izuki is a king and the mid warriors is like a popular name and so on, that they're super rich, like the richest family in the My Hero universe. So like yeah, and in yeah, I'm going to make Ida a bigger douchebag. Yeah, because I want something, because I want him that Izuku was going to execute him, but Kendo was there. Yeah, like that's the first time Kendo and him will meet, so that's how that going to happen. And yeah, and the guards are looking for the maid and so on. And let's say that the maid, what she did was she went into, like Izumi was in her room playing by herself, and the maid just went in there and took up Izumi. and told her that they're going to play a game. And they were walking, and the gods saw her, but they didn't want to do. And she covered Izumi ears and said, "If you do anything, like if you do anything or make a wrong move, I'll kill her." And so on. And the guards, knowing what would happen if they caused Izumi death, they did nothing and waited till when she left the hallway to go and to find not Hisashi, Andy and Izuku, and inform them of where the maid is and that she has Izumi. And when Izuku heard this, and Andy, let's say Andy's quirk is like a iceberg quirk. Yeah. None of them got the quirk that Izuku that their father had. Izuku has it. Yeah. And so when Andy heard that, like when he started to exhale, the room started to get cold, and crystals were starting to form right in front of Isashi. And he saw not Isashi, Andy, and Andy was pissed at this, so he made an ice sword. And when Izuku, he had already took off looking for her because I told her where the maid went, and he was running down there, and let's do. He took up the shad, like he can summon the swords, and let's say he summons both of them. Sorry about that pause. I had to do something. So, like I was saying, when Izuka heard that the maid had Izumi, he took off and he had the two swords in his hand. Uh, where is it? Yeah, these two swords in his hands. Yeah, and he's walking, and then five people from his army appeared and was walking behind him, and like 50 like say 200 light ones appeared around the palace, and 10 shadows one were in the shadows searching, and Izuku had the place on lockdown, and the guards almost everybody is afraid of Izuku because he can make literally an army over 10,000. Yeah, I say like when he gets older and older, he can do up to 1 million. Yeah, so people would be afraid of Izuku, even other countries. That's why they haven't tried to fight them, because if Izuku had came onto the battlefield, that country wouldn't have a chance of winning. Oh, why I'm stuttering. So here, Izuki is searching for the maid, and let's say he found her as she was about to put Izumi on a horse and rode off. And he summoned, let's say, the 10 shadow soldiers that was in the palace searching for Izumi right around here. And then Izuku talk like, so when he's using his shadows, his voice gets deep. Like his army, his quirk, his voice get deep, and he just says in a deep tone, like no, not a deep tone, a cold, cold tone that would give you like make chills go down your spine and so on. And he just talks. He talks and says, He just says, "Return, my sister, or I'll let you live," and so on. And she was scared, but she thought that she could take him down. But what she didn't know was that, let's say that she has like a hmm as should I say, like electricity quirk. Yeah, yeah, and she thought that she could at least kill Izuku, trying to get away because she thought if she killed him, the soldiers would go away, but they wouldn't. Izuku's spirit would just go into one of them, and they would take, and then that shadow would take on the form of Izuku's previous body, like his original body. So like that means he's basically immortal, but he does age, and he can get sick, but if he dies, he can goes into one of his soldiers. Yeah, I think most of my what if my dekus are going to be overpowered. Yeah, and this crest, let's say that it will be on Izuku's chest. Yeah, and Izumi and no, not Izumi, Lori and Izuku, they won't do the entrance exam because that let's say that the entrance exam already passed and what is going on, but like the USJ won't be until like all of all of what happened to Izuku and Lori is finished. Yeah. So Izuku found that she tried to shoot electricity at Izuku, but let's say Izuki can cancel out quirks with the sword, like if it's a emitter quirk and they fire something at him, like Toru can use ice or fire or endeavor or Dabi. Yeah, like he can just slice it and then it just disappears. Yeah, so let's say it's kind of like Asta's sword out of Black Clover, but it isn't. It's different. So yeah, and he when he did that, even before she could even say something or do something else, Izuku's shadow sword went straight into her stomach, and then she was going to try to electrocute him again, but that's when one of this like his light sword just goes straight into her head, killing her on the spot. Yeah, and Izumi, she she has seen people die before, but yeah, so she wouldn't really be shook about it, but she'd be shocked because she just saw her brother kill somebody. Yeah, I think anybody would be shocked if they saw their brother or sister kill somebody in front of them. Yeah, sorry about that. Just went to drink some water. So yeah, after that, Izumi was asking the Izuku why he killed her and so on. And Izuku he doesn't know how to explain that that the maid killed their mother. So he's going to make his their uncle explain it to Izumi. Since like he was the one that explained the death to them, and he made it sound away that he died honorable and so on. Yeah, so he'll be the one to explain to Uzumi that the maid killed their mother, his sister-in-law. So yeah, and by the time Lori had heard what happened, and well, Andy and Nora were still in the palace talking, and she asked what is going to happen, and Andy told her that Izuku would become the next king, but he isn't sure if he wants him to stay here, since it seems like there's some traitors in the army and spies and so on. So Lord, they were thinking about what they could do, and Nori asked if and Izuku, and Izumi could go to Japan at UA, attend UA. And let's say it's because Izuku and his sisters are going to UA why they had the dorms so early, and people are wondering why, but the school wouldn't tell them, or the principal Nezu or the teachers wouldn't tell anybody why they're building the dorms or anything until Izuku is there. So yeah, and then Andy he agreed to this and he called Nezu and telling Nezu about what happened. And let's say since Nezu is the smartest person and Hisashi was smarter creating that, like Nezu and Hisashi would knew each other, so Inko and Andy would know Nezu too. Yeah. And let's say All Might and the other heroes doesn't like they think that the, some people that kings are and so on are just people, the dictator and so on, because they don't get to know them. They just see all the wars and everything that happens. And let's say not as like he's the only person that gets why they will go to war and so on, and knows that they have to do it so that people don't go under slavery and so on. Sorry about that, guys. That was just my brother. And so, and I think I'll make this 1 hour long. So yeah. And Izuku and so on, they got back inside and Andy informed Izuku of what was going to happen after he became king and so on. So he knows what's going to happen. And since Kendo got one for all, like Nezu was thinking that it would be like a great opportunity for Kendo to train with the quirk more, because considering how Izuku can create soldiers and so on and they don't feel pain or anything, he was wondering if she could train with the quirk and go all out. So they would have told Kendo that a special person is coming with his sisters, and when he arrives that she shouldn't be shocked or cause a commotion about it. So she was there wondering who could be so important for the school to be acting like this. And there she was wondering if it was somebody more important than All Might. Because even Nezu was telling All Might to be on his act act decent around him and so on, and try to control the blood spitting and so on. Yeah. So Kendo is there wondering why they are acting that way. And after Andy explained to Izumi what happened, Izumi was crying. She was sad and that. And so Izuku, yeah, make a check something. So this is, yeah, same clothes he has on. And so Izuku said that he's in this clothes now and a little bit of blood is on it, but yeah, he took up Izumi and have her in his lap, and then he gave her something that their mother wanted to give her for her birthday, which is like, I'm going to say the day after the USJ, and he gave it to her because he wanted her to have something to remember her mother by. And so yeah, he gave Izumi, and Izumi started to play with it and started to calm down a little, then fall asleep. Like, tell me if you want to make Izuku adopt Kot, Kot, Kotha or Koda, I don't remember which one it is, and Eri, or make Azawa adopt them, or they stay, or Kota stay with Mandalay. I think that's her name. Yeah, Mandalay. So whichever one you guys want to happen, sure. And and Izumi fell asleep, and then Andy he was telling Izuku about what him and Yori was talking about, and Izuku was against it at first, but Then Andy told him that he wanted them to be safe today, safe they could get rid of the traitors and spies, so that Izumi could stay at the palace and at her home country. And since so Izuki cares more about his family than anything, he would agree unwillingly to go because he wanted to stay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And let's see, like this is a let's go off topic for a second. Let's say since Izuki is a prince and he's so good, other people from different countries wanted him to marry their daughter. But the thing is, most of them, their daughters were, let's, how could you say this without offending any girls? Like, they were gold diggers and so on. They only wanted his money and maybe and when he become king to try to poison him. Yeah, let's say that. I don't want to offend anybody, so I won't say that word. Say the word. I just say that. Yeah. And so that is happening while Izuku just has this the way how his face look now, and Andy feels sad for them, especially Izuku, because it's going to be a lot of burden now for him to manage for when he actually comes back to control the throne and so on, because he's going to have to look after his sisters, his country and goes to war. And that is stressful because even Hisashi and Inko had problems with doing it at time to time. So Andy was sad for them, and Izuku, when he agreed to this, they told the knights to go and pack up their things. And let's say because they're rich, they have a private jet. I'll see if I can look up a jet. Let's see. I couldn't find anything. So let's say it's this. Like, yeah, this. So they had their horses into it. Save me. They have their horses in it and things. So let's say, yeah, that was the jet and it has their horses and things in it. Yeah, sorry about that pause. Yeah. So they were, yeah, they packed up the things from that day and they left it there and was going to the ceremony now. And let's see. This is what Izuku was wearing this before, not this. So this is what Izuku is wearing like 3 days after. Yeah, and he's going down the aisle. His sisters are sitting on the thrones like where they would normally sit, like for the daughters, like the children of the king and so on, king and queen. So they'd be sitting there, and he would be the one sitting in the throne since he would have been in charge because Izuku was too young. But since he's 18 now, yeah, you are still a college, like half high school, half like a high school and college. When you're 16, you go to the college. Yeah, yeah, and so on. And yeah, and Izuku is going down the aisle, and a lot of people are there. Lots of people are there, and let's say including some pro heroes because Nezu wanted to go to see Izuku's ceremony. Yeah, and was going to go back with them on the jet, explaining about UA and so on. And All Might wanted to see how Izuku was and to see if he was spoiled or anything. And let's just say Izuku does not like All Might one bit because he thinks what All Might does is like reckless, since so most of the times All Might fights leads in so much destruction and so on, and people might get hurt. So he doesn't like that about All Might and so on. And so let's say one time that there was a villain that was hiding from UA went to their country, and All Might came there and just start going on a rampage, beating up the villain and cause a lot of damage and people to get hurt. So from that, Izuku doesn't like him. And UA had to, and the heroes at Japan and so on, and UA had to pay a lot of money, including All Might, since they didn't have permission to go into the country, especially to fight in the country or so on. Yeah, and since people got crippled and so on, Ahmed went under a lot of charges, and he was forbidden to go to their country for anything else other than to speak with somebody from the royal family. Oh, this is the only reason why allowed Almighty is allowed back into the country. And all the heroes are surprised about how strict they are with their laws and so on, that no hero can come or that can come into their country without permission, especially if it's to find a villain and if they're going to have to fight. Like if the hero breaks that law more than one time, like three time or two time, it's punishable by death. And all the other countries, they don't like they wanted to disagree with it, but they couldn't because they know that it isn't like their country, and different rules and how people lives are going to be affected, and some might even die because of the hero's fault. So yeah, and that. So Izuku, when he sees All Might, he gives him a death glare, and All Might, and let's say Nezu, and so, let's say the heroes that was there was Azawa, Midnight, yeah, I'm going to say Mount Lady, Miracle, Endeavor, Hawks, and yeah, All Might, he already said that, and Nezu. And let's say that Izuku know what Endeavor did since like their country, and they have a lot of spies and Nezu. So yeah, and he gives Endeavor a death glare too. And Endeavor with his hothead itself wanted to do something, but Nezu had to remind him that that's the new king of this country, and if he tries to do something that would seem like a declaration, a declaration, whatever, like a war invitation or something like that. A declaration, I can't pronounce that word. So of war, and Endeavor, he knows like about Izuku quirk, and he knows that if Izuku wanted, he could basically take over Japan and and make it a part of his colony. Let's say that they already captured about just two unknown countries that add into My Hero Academia. There's three random countries, yeah. Yeah, and Izuku captured one by himself. He just went there by himself, and when he got captured, he just created about 50,000 soldiers, which was higher than the ones that they had at the capital at the time. So Izuku overtook the throne of that castle, and he was declared the ruler. But he like didn't treat them bad or anything. and he put somebody he could that the family could trust in charge of that country. Yeah. And Izuku, while the ceremony is going on, Izumi and Lori is there. Izumi fell asleep, and Lori and Andy took a lot of pictures because look at how cute she is. It's like if you had a daughter like this or know somebody that has a daughter like this, wouldn't you take pictures every minute you or every chance you got? Yeah, that I meant every chance you got. So yeah, that's why they took pictures and so on. And Izuku he saw that and he wanted to, but he know it was in a ceremony. And let's say after they finished taking the pictures, and the lady that was supposed to do like the sword thingy like went up and that and did it like put the two family swords like that at each shoulder, then the next one. Here it is, yeah. And when you become a king or queen or son of the country, you get this branded onto your arm. And Izuku he had to take off the jacket, the shirt, and everything, and got that branded onto his arm. And he didn't show, he didn't flinch or show any pain and so on because he wanted to look strong in front of his sister Lori and in front of his country since it was being broadcasted. Yeah, and so on. So let's do this. Yeah. After the ceremony and so on, Izuku has on this same thing with the crown. And like everybody was leaving and so on, and then Izuku had to leave with Izumi and Lori now to go to Japan. And when they were leaving and going to the airport, like all the heroes was wondering why they didn't go back to the normal airport. They went to the royal family private one. And when they went to and saw this. Yeah, what's wrong with my phone? Yeah, they went and they saw this jet airplane or whatever, and they were surprised of how big it was. And Nezu told them that their stuff have been put onto this one because this is what they'll be going back to Japan on. And they were asking like whose own is it, and they said it's the royal's family airplane. And they weren't like really shocked, but they were wondering why they had such a big plane. And then let's say since Lori she would be like the more talkative one, and yeah, she would say because of that they see why when they reach inside. And say when they went in, Izuku was already in the plane, sitting down with the two swords in his hand, like just looking at them and so on. And when they were entering, they see this like stables where the horses are. Yeah, they see where a lot of cars, bikes, trucks, all kind of things. Not trucks, just bikes, cars, horses, and like some off-road vehicles there. And their jaws dropped, and they even saw like the latest car in there, and they were surprised. And when they reached to where they were supposed to sit and Izuku was there, he was like say let's say there's a part where he can do where like they can train and so on, and Izuku was in there with like let's say that hmm they found a traitor there, and Izuku had the traitor on the plane too in that training area, like beating him and so on, torturing him because Izuku doesn't thinks that it's because of them why his father and mother died. So Izuku is beefing him and they walking and say, Izumi, she already saw what they did, like that's what the Izuku did, like what they do to traitors and so on, that they torture them or whatever to get information. And she's used to it, but and those who already used to it, Azawa, he would understand, but he doesn't want like she to see. And then like Azawa would say like, why aren't you covering? Said to Lord, why aren't you covering up Izumi's eyes? And she would say that Izumi already saw. It's like since they were young, they had to see what happened to traitors and so on. And Azawa was like, oh, like he knew that traitor something had to happen, like in a big, like in a country like this that's known throughout the world and so on. You know that they would have probably tortured people or so on, like to get information if they are a traitor or so on. And that and all the other heroes they didn't like it, and let's say All Might and Endeavor them going up there and just say brat why, like they just endeavor just go up there like, hey brat, why don't you see that he had enough and so on. And he was going to release the traitor. And then Izuku just create 10 shadow soldiers and says in a cold voice, free him and you're next. And all the heroes except for, like all the heroes that got a chill down the spine and so on. And the rest of the heroes, even All Might, step back because they didn't know what the kid was going to do. And Endeavor, thinking that he's stronger, goes up there and tries to free the prisoner. Then Izuku just pulls out the two swords and out of basically nowhere, and says, "Free him, and you lose your arms." And Endeavor was like, like, is that a threat?" And Izuku says, "You're in my country and on my plane. Who is the one in charge?" And he just looks at Endeavor and says, "Who you think is in charge right now?" And everybody, all the heroes, they would know that they're on his ground, and even if they went to Japan, he would be like an ambassador or something, so they couldn't touch him if he had done something. So, like, he basically is untouchable fun, like that. Yeah, and so after this is the incident passed and so on. It passed and already happened. Yeah, and let's say when they reach Japan, like for the week, like a week, like say Izu Kendo, she's in like all the students in 1 year, and so they were told to go out like into the stadium and so on, and they were all wondering why and so on. Then they started to see bikes and shadow like soldiers and light soldiers to walk in, and regular knights to walk into the stadium. And then they see Izuku, like Izuku riding this horse, but say like it have on things like what this horse have on, like things like that on this one, and he's riding it. Nor to say he's riding this horse in with the soldiers and so on. And let's say that, yeah, Lori was right behind him on her horse, this black one, and Izumi was on her horse right beside of Izuku. And so Izumi had on a princess crown, same with Lori, and Izuku has on the crown to show that he's a king. Yeah, he has on this one, and they're riding, and everybody was shocked that like the king, like Izuku, was there and so on, and they were wondering what happened. For why most people don't know like say they don't know who he is, none at all. Yeah, let's say that. And people are asking and so on, and then Nezu came up on the intercom saying that the saying that hello students and good afternoon or whatever it is. I don't know time zones. So like he's saying good afternoon and so on, and people are like shouting out who are they and all kind of things, and then Nezu says those are those the boy with the crown on is Izuku Midoriya, the king of so and so country. They were shocked, and then he went on to say that Lori Midoriya, the first princess of so and so country, and Izumi, the third princess of that country, and that they will be coming to UA, and like so on, and then Principal Nezu said on the something that says Kendo. I don't remember her last name, so I'm just going to say Kendo, like or whatever name, and he says Kendo, you go to come to the principal office after class so you can come talk, so you can meet them and so on. And everybody was looking at Kendo and wondering why. And it's so see all the girls were blushing at Izuku because why the hell wouldn't they? No homo. You see this person riding on a white horse with crown and some front and these on him. Yeah. And people are looking at him and so on. And after that, after school and so on, Kendo went to the office and was asked, and they started to talk, and Nezu explained what happened to the Midoriya family and why they're at UA. And he called them in to come. And let's say since so Izumi, like she's really straightforward and so on, she just say anything that comes to her mind. So like that. And let's say when they were coming in, she could tell by Izuku's face expression that he didn't want to come and so on. So she was wondering why wouldn't he want to come on that? And then they started to talk, and Izuku wasn't talking. The one time he would talk if he was Lori or Izumi said something to him. And let's just say Izumi said this to Izuku. Is she going then she just straight up said to Izuku that can she be my auntie and so on, and Kendo blushed because and Izuku he didn't really blush but he moved and so on. I leave this off right here for now, and I probably do part 2 tonight and so on.